Okay, I'm going to do a book review of the Vatican's Holocaust today, and just want to give a little warning. This is a very graphic book, not appropriate for small children and things like that, but I need to get this out because the Vatican is just going all out right now. They're taking over a lot of things. I mean, they've always been in control. I do believe that they are the fifth kingdom, the part iron, part miry clay, the 10 toes there, that they're partly weak, partly strong. And they have times when they're strong, other times when they're weak. And I do believe that this right here, what happened back in World War II, was one of the times that they have, control in certain countries, and they can do a lot of bad things in those countries. And right now they don't have total control in America. We still do have some freedom here that we can get away with preaching against them. And so I'm taking that freedom to speak against Catholicism, and I'm going to use it to expose this whole horrible nightmare of World War II that the Catholic Church was behind. Definitely without any kind of a doubt. There you can see my studies of Stephen Anderson and his lies. More and more people are going to start coming out with this replacement theology, satanic belief system, denying Catholic involvement in the Holocaust and whatever else, and denying Fox's Book of Martyrs, things like that, where it wasn't the Catholic Church, it was the medieval church, it was secular authorities that persecuted Christians and whatever else, not the Vatican. Yes, it was the Vatican. And of course you'll say, well, you'll have another argument. People will say, well, but that was back 500 years ago. The Catholic Church has changed. No, actually this is less than 100 years ago, what they did over in Yugoslavia. So I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to show you some quotes, different things I've highlighted when I read this book. And this is a very, very good book. Highly recommend it. So I'm going to show you some things from this book and this study. This is for educational purposes. This is to warn people out there about this organization. The Vatican is still there, and they still have the same beliefs, and they are planning an even greater Holocaust in the future. So with that being said, we will get started. Okay, we have this sensational account of the most horrifying religious massacre of the 20th century, the Vatican's Holocaust, by Avro Manhattan. I'm just going to go through here, and we're going to read parts that I've highlighted. Okay, it says, a copy of this book was hurled across St. Peter's Cathedral, London, England, by the Archbishop of Canterbury, to the stupefaction of a vast congregation gathered there to pray for Christian unity. A journalist bought a copy to use it as a shield, expecting to be attacked by 3,000 people who had participated at the launching of the book in the Ulster Hall, Belfast, Northern Ireland, simply because they approved of its contents. The book was also kicked, trampled, and spat upon by a Catholic student in Belfast. None of these people had read a line of it. There you go, Roman Catholic narrow-mindedness. And again, somebody out there is saying, well, I know Catholics and they're not narrow-minded, they're nice people and blah, blah. Yeah, but the system of Catholicism, you see, that religious cultic system enables people to, it can create monsters, essentially. That's what we're going to see in there, in this book here. And just because you know some Catholic, your next door neighbor is a Catholic and they're a nice person and help you out and whatever else, they can turn on you very quickly when the Pope gives the command to do so. Because when you believe that you are the one true church and that all others are heretics and things like that, well, if you are convinced that your God is saying to kill the heretics, well, that nice little facade goes away very quickly. And if you ever get into a conversation with very devout Roman Catholics, you'll see that. Preface to the American editions. The Vatican Holocaust is not a misnomer, an accusation, and even less a speculation. It is an historical fact, definitely. 700,000 in a total population of a few million proportionally would be as if 1/3 of the USA population had been exterminated by a Catholic militia. Okay, 1/3 of the people there in Croatia, over there, a third of them were slaughtered by the Catholics during World War II. And yet, when you go to public school, you won't hear anything about that slaughter. Interesting. And you won't hear anything about Adolf Hitler being a Roman Catholic and all the Jesuit tie-ins and stuff to the Nazi Party. You won't hear about that. Page 3. The papal nuncio in Germany, E. Pacelli, led the powerful Catholic Center Party sharply to the extreme right, thus allying it with the forces which were to skyrocket Hitler to power. In Italy, the Vatican strengthened fascism by signing a pact with Mussolini in 1929. Absolutely. The Vatican is a political organization. It is a political power, and it always has been. And they will do whatever they need to do to put their people in power. Anybody that thinks out there that the Vatican is just kind of a church organization and whatever, no, they're not. They are the most powerful force on the planet. The Lord is the only one that's more powerful than the Catholic Church right now. You say, what about the devil? The devil runs the Catholic Church. So the Godhead is the only one that has more power than the Catholic Church right now. Here we are on page 20. The sundry semi-military illegal terrorist movements were likewise screened by the mantle of religion. Okay, again, Catholicism creates terrorism. They create different terrorist organizations. A lot of the all of the Islamic movement goes back to the Vatican, tied back to the Vatican. Again, I have a video on that. Disarming of the Yugoslav army. Talked about that. Why do you think that there's such a move to disarm the American people? Over the UK, you've already been disarmed. But here in America, they're trying very hard to disarm the American population. They don't want people having weapons. Archbishop Stepanek welcomes anti-Pavlik. Okay, there you have the Catholics working with this monster here, anti-Pavlik, the head of the Ustashi, Roman Catholic murderous organization. And there again it talks about the Ustashi army thing. Stepanek ordered special ceremonies in all the Catholic churches on Pavlik's birthday, and he frequently invoked the blessing of God upon the Ustashi. So, proven fact. Again, you have disarmed the local gendarmerie. I guess is how you say that. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but a lot of these pictures are very old, so they aren't the highest resolution or anything else there. But anti-Pavlik, and again this archbishop, excuse me. Page 24. For the direction of the undesirable and dangerous persons to compulsory detention in concentration camps, dated September 25th, 1941. Again, they're talking about the same thing today here in America. Hate crime legislation. We should have re-education camps and things like this. Necessary rendition is a modern name for torture. And yet a lot of Christians are just asleep. Well, I don't think we should be so hard on the Roman Catholics and things like this. And you look at Obama. I have a video on this. Obama appointed a Jesuit to head the Office of Religious Freedom or something like this. Yeah, okay. The Jesuits that were created to bring all religions back under the authority of Rome. I mean, there are even Roman Catholics that are weirded out by the Jesuit order, and that are against it. But the Jesuit is going to oversee religious freedom. Sure he is. Page 24. A leader of the Crusaders wrote, God, who directs the destiny of nations and controls the hearts of kings, has given us anti-Pavlik and moved the leader of a friendly and allied people, Adolf Hitler, to use his victorious troops to disperse our oppressors and enable us to create an independent state of Croatia. Glory be to God, our gratitude to Adolf Hitler, and infinite loyalty to Chief Ante-Pavlik. Okay? And again, Hitler was a Roman Catholic. And Anderson and all these other liars, that's not true. There's no proof at all. I mean, there's proof all over the place. Here's another picture. Nazi officers, and Roman Catholics. There's a better picture of Ante Pavlik, a very disgusting individual. Page 27, when Ustashi, Croatia collapsed, Pavlik hid at the Vatican, then disguised as a monk, fled to the Argentine, where he set up an Ustashi government, waiting for the day. In other words, when they could, reemerge and make more trouble. And the Vatican protected a lot of these Ustashi guys. A lot of them went to America through the connections through the State Department and things like that. I think it was it Operation Paperclip? I think it was. One of you can write it down there in the comments. I think it was Operation Paperclip, where our government, the American government, basically brought Nazi scientists over to America to work for our government. The whole World War II thing is a scam. It was all a lot of lies. So, but let's continue. Pius XII had been the recipient of portents, that is, of phenomena with which only saints, it is said, are privileged. This even through such phenomena as a rule occur after death, and always when a rational scrutiny of the miracles has become impossible. During the conclave of 1939, convened to elect a new pope, Cardinal Pacelli was visited by Pius X in person. Pius X announced that the next pontiff would be him, Pacelli. It was a miracle. It must have been, for Pius X had died almost 3 decades earlier. Pacelli was indeed elected pope. The fact that he cast his own vote for himself did not really affect the issue. Pacelli became Pope Pius XII, choosing the name of Pius in honor of Pius X. Okay? 10 years later, in 1950, Pius XII, after patient years of self-canonization, saw the sun zigzag in the sky of Rome, not once, it must be noted, but on 3 successive days. That's a good trick. As if this were not enough, the very Mother of God appeared to him with within the convulsed sphere, in a spectacle of celestial movements in transmission of mute but eloquent messages to the vicar of Christ. In other words, the guy was possessed with devils. Okay, he's seeing, former popes that have been dead for, years and years and years, and they're appearing to him and telling him things, and Mary, the Mother of God, is appearing to him, and so crazy. Okay, now we're going to get into some of the graphic pictures and things, and this is history. Okay, you got these Roman Catholics. They will come out and they will say that the Holocaust didn't happen. The Catholics had no, involvement in anything. They're just innocent, totally innocent. That's why I'm doing this study, to show you that no, they were not innocent. Okay, here you have that picture. The Nazis, who for a time were posted in Croatia, were so horrified at the Ustashi atrocities that they set up special commissions to investigate them. Down here it talks about killed 600 of them with guns, knives, and sledgehammers. Okay, and if you don't understand what was going on in Croatia there, and Yugoslavia, Serbia, all that different areas there, they have the Greek Orthodox system and Roman Catholicism, and the two are fighting for power all the time. Neither one is right, but at least the Greek Orthodox have the right Bible. But there's been this struggle since way back when, and the Catholics are trying to constantly take over the Greek Orthodox, and the Greek Orthodox are kicking the Catholics out. It's two big state government churches fighting against each other. And now you see the Greek Orthodox starting to join with Catholicism. It's a bad situation. Page 37. For them, the minorities, he said, we have 3 million bullets. Again, Catholics saying we can just kill these Greek Orthodox. There you have a picture. They're about ready to kill this guy, the pit of death. They're going to kill him and then dump him down into this pit. The barbarity created such a commotion, even among the Nazis, that they set up a committee to exhume the bodies and took photographs as evidence. The oral process was incorporated in an official Nazi document, Ustanzenwerk by Bilovar. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but there you have that. Okay. In other words, the Nazis were so shocked by how cruel these Catholic Ustashi were. Not all the Nazis. Some of the Nazi soldiers were probably, non-Catholic or something, and they were probably just, secular, and they're going, what are these crazy Catholic Ustashi doing? And here, of course, you have some poor little children that starved to death. Just terrible. But it says, and Eustachi, named Ante Urban, a pious Catholic, protested indignantly at his trial after the war when accused of having killed hundreds of children. He asked the judge to consider the accusation a lie, since, he explained, he had killed personally only 63 of them. Oh, well, let's just drop the charges then. I mean, he only killed 63, not hundreds. Again, it's this same thing of these Holocaust deniers, like Stephen Andersnake or any of the other ones. Serpent Andersnake, we'll call him. These guys, it wasn't 6 million Jews. It was probably only 100 or 200,000. And that's not enough? That's not an atrocity? And it was 6 million too, by the way. And I didn't say about this in my debunking thing of this Holocaust denial deal, but one of the ways that they can tell it was 6 million is by looking at the census type of a thing. How many Jews were living in this country and how many Jews were living in that country, and then after the war. And that's another reason why they come up with a thing of 6 million. And eyewitness accounts and all this other stuff, all these other proofs out there. And yet these satanic anti-Semitic Roman Catholics are coming out all the time. No, we didn't kill 6 million. They didn't say we, but there weren't 6 million killed. That was all a lie. It was only a couple 100,000. So, we'll just let it go then, Yeah. Here we have page 41, put to death with hammers. They were so disgusting they, beat people with hammers. 66,000 Orthodox Serbs brought from the villages of the Bosnian marches were slaughtered, including 2,000 children. Less than 100 years ago. This is what Roman Catholics are capable of. And if you think, for 1 minute, that there are no Roman Catholics like this anymore. I mean, look at Stephen Anderson when he talks about the Jews. Watch the hatred come into his face. He would gladly kill Jews. Page 42. At that time, fresh women and children came daily to the camp at Stara Gradiška. About 14 days later, Verban, commandant of the camp, ordered all children to be separated from their mothers and put in one room. 10 of us were told to carry with them there in blankets. The children crawled about the room, and one child put an arm and leg through the doorway so that the door could not be closed. Verban shouted, "Push it." When I did not do that, he banged the door and crushed the child's leg. Then he took the child by its whole leg and banged it on the wall till it was dead. After that, we continued carrying the children in. When the room was full, Verban brought poison gas and killed them all. At his trial, Ante Verban protested that he had not killed hundreds of children personally, but only 63. There's the more detailed account of that thing. Okay. Dr. Katichik, chairman of the Red Cross, shocked by these mass murders, lodged the strongest protest, threatening to denounce to the world this mass slaughter of infants. As a reply, Pavlik had Dr. Katichik flung into the concentration camp of Stara Gradiška. That was not all. Even worse horrors, if worse there could be, took place in Pavlik's concentration camps. There were cases when the victims were burned alive. The cremation at Jasenovac took place in the spring of 1942. In this, they meant to imitate the Nazi camps in Germany and Poland. So Pacelli had the notion of making the brickworks into a crematorium, where he did succeed. Out of 14 ovens, 7 aside, in making an oven for cremating people. There was then a decision to cremate people alive and simply open the huge iron door and push them alive into the fire already alight there. That plan, however, excited terrible reaction among those who were to be burned. People shrieked, shouted, and defended themselves. To avoid such scenes, it was resolved first to kill them and then to burn them. So, you're when you deal with Roman Catholics that get this bloodlust thing, I mean, study church history, study about the Waldensians, study Fox's Book of Martyrs. I mean, when Roman Catholics, when there's no restraint there, when there's no government lawful authority to protect Bible-believing Christians, they will go into demonic frenzies like you would not believe. They will do things that you just are shocked to even know about. And many people out there, many of you probably don't even know about this stuff. That's why I'm doing this little book review here. It's just, Terrible. Page 44. At the last named place, victims were wired together in groups of 20, taken to the edge of a 1,000-foot cliff, where the Eustachi killed the first persons only, so that they dragged the others down alive with them. Another torture that they would do. Next page. Often the executions were committed in the homes of the victims with the most primitive weapons. Some Eustachi specialized in disposing of their charges by crushing their skulls with hatchets or even with hammers. Incredible but authenticated atrocities were committed wherever the Eustachi appeared. At Dubrovnik, Dalmatia, for instance, Italian soldiers took pictures of an Eustachi wearing two necklaces. One was a string of cut-out eyes, the other of torn tongues of murdered Serbs. Done by our military, by the way, too, in Vietnam. I don't know, maybe some of the other wars, too. I'm not sure. But the fact of the matter is, I've read numerous books on the Vietnam War. There were soldiers in Vietnam that were doing the same thing, cutting parts of the bodies of enemies off and making necklaces with it. There's some sick individuals out there. Further down here on the page, page 45, in the villages of Baska, Perna, and Pajomoji, Basanka, Krupa district, in the summer of 1941, 540 women and children were locked in houses, which were then set on fire. In the village of Kriva Rervek, about 600 people were burned in their houses. Sorry I'm butchering these names. If you're from Croatia, Yugoslavia, wherever, I apologize. But here you have this thing that they would do. They would take, here you have Eustachi, and they would take a prisoner, and they would basically hold up this pan here underneath, and they would take this knife and plunge it right into the neck and let the guy bleed to death. Peter Brzyka, during the day and night of 29th August 1942, Brzyka cut the throats of 1,300 prisoners in the concentration camp of Jasenovac. He was rewarded with a gold watch and proclaimed King of Cutthroats. Dr. Nikola Kilolik, a Croat and a Catholic, was an eyewitness to the deed. So even Catholics are admitting. Even Roman Catholics are saying, yeah, I saw it. We awarded him with a gold watch. The one true church of the apostles, founded upon the Apostle Peter. Sure, yeah, right. Page 48. August 29th, 1942. Peter Brzyka cut the throats of 1360 prisoners with a specially sharp butcher's knife. That's what we just read there. And he got a gold watch for it. Eyewitnesses testified to similar occurrences. In the village of Gorovac, on September 13th, 1941, children of about 3 years of age were impaled. In some places, mothers threw themselves down with children in their arms, and one stake perforated mother and child. Some young girls had their breasts tied or cut. Others had their hands made to pass through them. Men had their ears and noses sawn away, and eyes had been uprooted from their sockets. Historical facts. Less than 100 years ago. Done by Roman Catholics. Here are pictures of men that were hung. When you're hung, they tie your hands behind your back, and basically when you fall, the weight of your body breaks your neck. That's why their necks are off to the side like that. More pictures of it. Father Branko Dobroslavljevic, I'm not even going to try that one, from Belgium, who had to read the obituary of his own son, whom the Eustachi killed in his presence after horribly mutilating him. These are sick individuals. Page 52. During our journey towards the hill of Javor, near that place and Ozren, all the Serbian villages which we came across were wholly deserted. But inside the houses, very often we find whole families massacred. We even came across some barrels filled with blood. In the villages between Vlasinica and Kladenj, we discovered children who had been impaled upon stakes, their small members still distorted by pain, resembling insects stuck upon pins. Terrible. Some Eustachi did not hesitate to crucify their victims. Who was it that crucified Jesus Christ? Oh, it was the Romans. You say, well, the Jews. The Jews were the ones that delivered him to Pilate, but it was the Romans that disobeyed proper just laws and crucified him. It was Roman crosses that Jesus Christ was crucified upon, not Jewish crosses. Let's not forget the enemy. On August 2nd, 1941, the Eustachi authorities of Virgin Most and of Srebrenica announced that all Serbs who did not wish to be molested had better assemble on the following day at 3 a.m. in Virgin Most, where Catholic priests would be waiting to convert them to Catholicism. About 5,000 people followed this advice instead of Catholic priests. Units of Eustachi, armed with machine guns, encircled the assembled crowd, who were held prisoners until the following day, when they were all massacred. Among them were 37 children under 10 years of age. Let me pause or just stop here for a minute. That's why when you see Steven Anderson and he says, I don't hate the Jews, I want to see them get saved. We're going on a soul-winning crusade to Dearborn, Michigan to pass out Jewish hate videos, videos that say the Jews and their lies in Arabic. I don't hate the Jews. I want to see them get saved. You mean you want to convert them? It's Catholic. He's a Catholic. You look at the gospel he preaches. It's not the gospel that's found in the New Testament. He's not preaching the New Testament gospel. He's preaching a gospel of Jesus Christ burning in hell to pay for sins. Much less the thing of, add in the thing that he doesn't preach repentance. He's a Roman Catholic. That's all he is. That's why he wants conversions. Not long afterwards, on August 20th, 1941, another unit of the Eustachi arrested all Serbs in the neighboring region of Lejevno, took them to the woods of Koprovincia between Bogojno and Kupres, and killed them all. A few days later, they arrested all the surviving families, whom they also massacred on the same spot. Before the massacre, women and even young girls were raped, after which most of them had their breasts cut and arms and legs broken. Some old men, before being executed, were blinded by way of having their eyes cut with knives or torn from their sockets. 500 women and children were hurled into pits in the hills of Tuznica and Komansnica, while another 80 women and children were massacred in the village school of Celebic. The Italian fascist authorities were so shocked by such incredible cruelty that in addition to dispatching their troops to protect the surviving population and occupying the region of Lejivno and neighboring places, they dispersed the Eustachi and sent a protest to Zagreb. Eustachi were committing no less abominable atrocities in other parts of the country. In the town of Prejdor, for instance, during the night of July 31st through August 1st of 1941, they massacred 1,400 men, women, and children, leaving their corpses to rot in the houses and in the streets. The Nazis nearby, horrified at such wholesale butchery, entered the town, compelling the Eustachi to leave. Why aren't these things in the history books, The Nazis had records of massacres of their own second to none, yet the horrors committed by Pavlik's Eustachi troops proved to be of such bestiality as to shock even them, a most crushing evidence that the Eustachi massacres had surpassed anything experienced even by the Germany of Hitler. The magnitude of the butchery can best be gauged by the fact that within the first 3 months, from April to June 1941, 120,000 people perished thus. Proportionately to its duration and the smallness of the territory, it had been the greatest massacre to take place anywhere in the West prior to, during, or after the greatest of cataclysms, the Second World War. Yet the history books are silent on the Eustachi, except for maybe just a little mention here and there. And you say, well, this stuff is making me fearful, this stuff is scaring me. Well, it's not intended for that purpose. What this is intended, the whole reason for this study, is to get some of you to realize that there is a danger within Catholicism, a very serious danger. Right now, we can still fight it. Right now, we have time that we can stop this thing from happening to the body of Christ. Now, when the body of Christ leaves, especially if you're Jewish out there, let me make this point. I'm going to be talking more to the Jews in the future. But if you're Jewish, you need to understand when the body of Christ leaves, the only people that will be left on earth, all of them will hate you as a Jew. Your supporters, the Bible-believing Christians, are going to leave, and you're going to be totally left with people that hate the whole Jewish kindred out there, the whole Jewish race, if you want to use that term. You better get saved. You don't want to go through what's coming. It's going to be far worse than this. But let's continue. Page 56. The Katoliki Chechnik organ of Catholic action, published under the direction of the Archbishop of Sarajevo, Dr. Ivan Sarek, printed articles entitled A New Order Must Come, issue number 4, 1941, before Hitler attacked Yugoslavia. Okay, these guys have been planning this thing for a long time. Okay, page 57. Ustashi disarmed the local gendarmerie and captured the post office. Okay, a Franciscan brother, with the help of a number of youths, disarmed an entire Serbian company. And when Jesus Christ said in Luke chapter 11, verse 26, I believe it is, I think it's that verse, but it talks about, or maybe it's, let me look it up real quick. I want to get that right. But when Jesus Christ talked about, if you don't have a sword, sell your garment and buy one, he wasn't just fooling around or speaking kind of symbolically or whatever else. It's very serious down here in this world. I mean, when you are dealing, Luke chapter 22, I think it is. When you are dealing with people that can turn into that very quickly, the Ustashi types of people, don't give up any kind of weapons. I don't care what laws are passed. Don't give up any kind of firearms or other types of weapons, things to defend yourself. Do not let anyone disarm you. Luke chapter 22, verse 36. Then said he unto them, But now he that hath a purse, let him take it, and likewise his scrip, and he that hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. Okay? And I take that to mean a comparable form of self-defense today would be, we don't so much use swords, although that is still a pretty viable weapon, especially at short, close distances. A sword's actually better than a gun, or a knife even is better than a gun at really short distances. There have been many studies done on that. But the point is, you need to be able to defend yourself, because there are people out there that you can't witness to. Okay, that the only language that they're going to understand is, bang, bang, go down, or whatever else. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, now you should try to witness and try to be a Christian, and as far as Christian charity for people and mercy and whatever else. But when this type of stuff starts to happen, when the Catholics start coming around and whatever else, time to fight. Because if you don't stop them, they just become more and more and more emboldened, and they'll get sicker and more disgusting and horrible. I mean, the Waldensians, they fought. They'd take up a sword and they'd fight. So here we go, page 58. The Catholic Press, the Courier of the Honorable Guards of Christ's Heart, contained in issues number 5 and 6, 1941. In the early spring, the Croatian people experienced their resurrection at the time of Christ's resurrection. The great Son of the Croatian people returned and gave them their liberty and ancient rights. And this is also the work of God. The Lord did it all, and this is why it is strange to our eyes. Okay? That's what the Catholics are saying. In other words, they're promoting what they were doing, what the Ustashi was doing. Witness the voice of the Crusader movement, Nidigia, there, which is in its issue of June 6, 1941. Christ and the Ustashi and Christ and the Croatians marched together through history. From the first day of its existence, the Ustashi movement has been fighting for the victory of Christ's principles, for the victory of justice, freedom, and truth. Our Holy Savior will help us in the future as he has done until now. This is why the new Ustashi Croatia will be Christ's, ours, and no one else's. Okay? So when you see people and they say, "Well, I believe in Jesus Christ," of course, we're marching to Zion, this whole thing. Steven Anderson and people like that, they can talk a very good talk. they learn ways, they study, and they can watch our videos. They can read our books that we put out as Bible believers. They can read the King James Bible, and they can learn to imitate us. And they can come out and say, oh, well, I'm working for Christ. I just want to spread the love of Christ out there and things. But it's by their fruit that you'll know them. And again, you see two places here, disarming the Yugoslav army. That's what the Catholics came in and did. Here you have, again, the Catholic press, including the diocesan and episcopal papers, all supported and praised the Eustachi from the first to the last. Totally supported by Roman Catholicism. The Eustachi was a nice little army for him. Page 62. There will be purges, shouted priest Mikan. Yes, there will be purges. Were these massacres committed only by the followers of Pavlik? They were often promoted and carried out by Catholic priests claiming to be the followers of Christ and the representatives of a church trumpeting to the four winds that she preached universal love. It will suffice for us to mention only a few. Franciscan priest Mate Mogus disarmed Yugoslav troops. Look, people, at these 16 brave Eustachi who have 16,000 bullets and who will kill 16,000 Serbs. Again, oh, the Catholic Church, we're just universal. We're the universal church. We're spreading love and everything else. Look out for that. The Bible condemns Roman Catholicism in Revelation chapter 17, right? Clearly the Roman Catholic Church. It's not America. It's not the Illuminati or some other kind of nonsense. It's clearly Roman Catholicism, And you get these people that they don't want to talk. Let's not talk so much about the Catholics. And well, Hitler wasn't really a Catholic. It was just kind of, he was into evolution. He was secular and whatever. Look out. Here we have the next page, page 63. A group of Franciscan priests who tortured and finally killed 25 Serbs in the village of Kassel took photographs of their victims. Sick individuals. Priest Bozo Simlisa, on July 27, 1941, he held a meeting in the village, and when he was informed that all Serbian men had been murdered and that women and children were to be killed that night, he told them not to wait for the night, for 24 hours had already passed since the chief had issued his order that not a single Serb must be left alive in Croatia. No mercy. No women and children. Yeah, just kill them right now. Just kill them. Page 65. In the provinces of Lika, Banija, and Kordun, where 172 churches were totally destroyed. Again, they'll let people have their own little Babel buildings that are basically come from Catholic, pagan practices of building pagan temples and calling them church. But they'll let them have them until the right time, and then they come in and just crush them and destroy them. And, because then the people are dependent, and they just, I'll do whatever I have to do. They'll convert to Catholicism. But it says here, Orthodox priests, before being executed or hanged, were often horribly tortured. Example given there, priest Branko D. I won't try to pronounce that, from Velgen, who was compelled to read the obituary of his own son, whom the Eustachi first killed in his presence, then preceding his own torture and death. The higher clergy were not spared. On the night of June the 5th, 1941, on orders from the Eustachi chief, Gutik, the Orthodox bishop Platon of Banja Luka in western Bosnia, together with several Orthodox priests, some of whom were former members of the House of Representatives, was taken to the outskirts of the town by the Eustachi. There the old bishop's beard was torn out, a fire lit on his naked chest, then after prolonged torture, he and all his companions were killed with hatchets and their bodies thrown into the Verbanja River. Dozitij, Orthodox Bishop of Zagreb, capital of the independent state of Croatia, where Archbishop Stepanek had his residence, lost his reason as a result of the tortures inflicted upon him before his expulsion to Belgrade. 3 Orthodox bishops, Peter Zimonjic of Sarajevo, Sava Trelajic of Plaski, and Platon of Banjulica, were murdered. Okay. Numerous Catholic priests and monks, some of whom were not even attached to the Eustachi formations, carried out indiscriminate executions with their own hands. Many of them methodically and with precision took part in the most incredible orgies of blood. Canon Ivan Mikin, already mentioned, made daily rounds of the prison and mercilessly beat Orthodox Serbs with a bullwhip, scolding the Ustashi for being lax in their work, personally ordering that the Orthodox monastery of Gomrij be looted and its inmates sent to a concentration camp where they were all executed. Fra Anto, a Catholic priest of Tremosnichka, organized Ustashi bands with the object of capturing as many Orthodox Serbs as he could, whom very often he tortured personally, as he did at Breko. Simic Vejekuslav, a monk of the monastery at Kinin, personally killed numerous Orthodox. Sidonj Sol, a monk of the Franciscan monastery in Nasis, deported the Orthodox population of whole villages, while the Catholic priests Gunkevich and Marajonovich Dragutin, in addition to acting as police officials, ordered the arrest of hundreds of Orthodox, whom they tortured and then killed, taking an active personal part in their execution. German Kastimir, abbot of the monastery in Guntik, personally directed the mass murder of the Orthodox Serbs of Glina, 100 of whom were murdered inside the Orthodox Church there. The names of many others have been put on record by the Serbian Orthodox Eastern Orthodox Diocese of the USA and Canada, by the Orthodox Church of Yugoslavia, by the Yugoslav government, and by other official agencies. Okay? Again, Catholic priests will join right into the killing and murder when this stuff happens. Here you have forced conversion, Catholic priest, people there from the village. Collective resistance was met by ruthless collective punishment. Another tactic used by our military, and by which comes from Catholicism. If one person is doing wrong, then we'll punish the whole unit. They'll do that. And if one person does wrong, we're going to destroy the whole village. The way these Catholics were doing things. Again, another picture of forced conversions. You Serbs are condemned to death, and you can only escape that sentence by accepting Catholicism. A Jesuit priest and a sworn Ustashi, Father Shreko Perik of the Gorsia Monastery near Livno, advocated mass murders with the following words: "Kill all Serbs, and when you finish, come here to the church, and I will confess you and free you from sin." This resulted in a massacre on August 10th, 1941, during which over 5,600 Orthodox Serbs in the district of Livno alone lost their lives. Sure, Jesuits are perfectly capable of doing that. Again, more conversions, forced conversions. Father Dionysio Jurek, Ante-Pavlik's confessor, was quite blunt about it. Any Serb who refuses to become a Catholic should be condemned to death, he declared at Staza in the district of Banjia. Incredible. There you have the Catholic priest behind the Ustashi symbol there. The terrible reputation of the Ustashi for ruthlessness was often sufficient to persuade people to embrace the Catholic Church, and their bayonets helped the Catholic padres to baptize those who hesitated. The alternative, the preachers warned, was seizure of their property, arrest, concentration camps, or even execution. Next page, page 72. There you have this guy, Catholic priest, then he becomes a soldier. Father Filipovic, chief ecclesiastical murderer of Croatia, although a monk of the Order of St. Francis, was a fanatical Ustashi long before the Second World War. His political and religious ruthlessness can be judged by the fact that while addressing a battalion of the armed Ustashi in the village of Drakulic, he killed an Orthodox child with his own hands. These people have a level of hate that just knows no bounds. Again, more pictures of the concentration camps, which the modern Holocaust deniers would say, oh, that doesn't even exist. It was all just photoshopped, I imagine, Sure. The Ustashi committed the most execrable crimes with the utmost indifference. Frequently they amused themselves with prolonging the tortures of their prisoners to pass the time. Sick individuals. Catholic priests too advocated the killing of children. Witness Father D. Jurek. Today it is no longer a sin to kill a child of 7, he said, should such a child be opposed to our movement of the Ustashi. No conscience at all. Here you have a picture of the Ustashi. The guy's holding up his knife. This one there, they're holding the guy, and they're going to cut his head off with a crosscut saw. Nice, huh? Mass murders were supplemented by the massacre of individuals, mostly in rural districts. Instances of the utmost ferocity occurred. The Ustashi very often used the most primitive weapons such as forks, spades, hammers, and saws to torture their victims prior to their execution. They broke their legs, pulled off their skin and beards, blinded them by cutting their eyes with knives, and even tearing them from their sockets, as a survivor, Marija Bugunovich, testified. Sometimes executions were committed on the home ground of victims carried out with conventional guns and revolvers. Some Ustashi specializing in disposing of their charges by crushing their skulls with hatchets or even hammers. At Dubrovnik, Dalmatia, fascist soldiers had photographs of an Ustashi wearing 2 necklaces. One was a string of cut-out eyes, the other of torn-out tongues of murdered Orthodox Serbs. We read this earlier. Similar thing here. In this photograph, Ustashi are torturing an Orthodox Serb with a saw prior to executing him, somewhere in Bosnia in 1943. The photograph was found in the pocket of a dead Ustashi in 1945.